right. So Barbara was amazing. I'm sure. Cannot wait to watch that recording. If you didn't know, we had some technical difficulties. So we're back on to, and by we, I mean me, not everybody else. Thank goodness, right? All right, so we're back on track, and our next and last speaker today happens to also be our only male in the group. So thank you 1,000 times over to our very own Wil Becker for saying yes to this incredible adventure and for being with us for years now. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Can't wait to introduce you. Wil is going to talk to us about going from fired to fantastic, which is really very cool. Wil is a writer, a podcaster, a speaker, a coach, and an entrepreneur. He has served in several leadership roles over the last 25 years. He has been a youth pastor, congregational leader, and assistant pastor. He has also served with the Boy and Cub Scouts organizations as a Scoutmaster, assistant Scoutmaster, and den leader. Wil moved up in his professional career because of his love of technology, his leadership skills, and his consistent self-education. He loves to teach and help others grow and excel. Wil seeks to learn from the best books, authors, events, and mentors. And he just is one of those amazing heart-centric men who I am honored to know. So please help me welcome Wil Becker. Yay!
Thank you, Jamie. I actually changed my story that I was going to start with today because of how much people have talked about leading from the heart and talked about love. And this story I have called Roses and Thorns. And I was about 13 or 14 years old. And my parents were going through some troubles in their marriage. And one day, as I was going to school, my mom took it upon herself to prevent me from going to school. And the way that she did that is she locked the front door and stood in front of it. And as I went around the house, because our house was square and you could go around the center of the house, as I was making my way around, she, instead of following me, she turned left, locked that door, and then came around and caught up to me. And my mom is a fantastic hugger. And so she put me in a bear hug and kind of wrestled me to the ground. Being the mom of 4 boys, she had to learn how to put some hurting on us in the way that we could understand. And what she did is she wanted me to talk about what was going on because she was perceptive enough to know that I was struggling with some things. And that I was old enough to know that there were things going on between my parents that my younger siblings probably weren't paying attention to or were aware of how they were affecting them. And so in that morning, when she wrestled me to the ground and sat on me, she wanted first for me to know that she loved me, and that the things that her and my dad were struggling with were not because of me. But she then talked about how my parents, how they had things that were not good enough for me to learn from, the flaws in their personalities. And so she talked about how everybody has roses and thorns. And the roses are the good qualities, the good parts of us, the parts that blossom, as Cindy Rose talked about yesterday, and the thorns, the parts of us that prickle and needle other people and that cause ourselves pain also. And she said to me, look for people in our community, in books, and find the qualities that you want to adopt and study those people, reread those stories, reread those books, and figure out for yourself how to make that part of who you are. And what that started me on is after I kind of thought through it and kind of figured some things out for myself, it started me collecting quotes. And I have over 500 quotes that I post across social media because they speak to me so strongly. One of the first ones that I'm going to share today is reading is how we install new software. When we pick up a book and read it, it changes who we are. Now, the best part is for you and I is that we get to choose some of those changes. Some things will hit us so hard that they will force a change. Just like some relationships will be so impactful that we make changes because of that relationship. And sometimes those are conscious and unconscious. But when we pick up a book, whether it's a leadership book or whether it's a business book or whether it's a novel that's been around for 200 years, we're borrowing wisdom and knowledge from somebody else's life. And we're able to me, it's an ultimate cheat code, because if you know video games, there's cheat codes, but a book takes a person's life, maybe 50, 60 years, maybe 80 years, and it condenses it down into maybe a 6-hour read, maybe a 5-hour read. And you get some lengthier ones, but that's how we are able to install new ideas and concepts. Along with that, though, my second quote is, "It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it." And that's by Aristotle. Being able to have a discussion with somebody, listen to what they're saying, and to be able to really just roll it around in your mind and to really consider what they're saying. Because we don't have to accept everything somebody says, but we need to be strong enough to look at it and reevaluate and say, maybe this is really true about me, or maybe this is something that I need to look into more. Or, you know what? I don't know if I believe that idea or not. And that reading, that education that we go through, that we choose to go through, helps that. The first time I heard this quote, I thought it was the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. And I laughed because now I feel dumb that I didn't get it that first time. And it's this, is that no one steps into the same river twice. And that concept is that water has gone past us. It's moved. So you may be standing in the same spot, but that river continues to flow. It's the same thing with a book or a movie or a relationship. We change every day. Sometimes they're minute little changes, and sometimes they're massive, life-changing changes. One of the things that has happened recently in my home is because of my own pursuits. I have 3 children that have now started to change some of their habits because they see what I'm doing. They're making different changes than I'm making, but each one of them has taken steps to make changes in their own lives. And the next thing is listening. And we've had several different people talk about listening to other people. You know, one of Cheryl's things is, I see you. I hear you. She pays attention to us and she treats us like she wants to be treated, like a person, like an individual. And when we use our minds and our ears to listen to other people, when we focus on what they're saying, then we're able to connect with that person, with that individual, and to treat them and respect them in their space. We don't have to agree with their choices. We don't even have to understand the reasons why they make those choices, but we can still connect with them and treat them as an individual and as a person. And we can show the proper amount of care, concern, or, you know, whatever the relationship needs, we can add that to that. The second thing about listening is, what are we listening to? We've got drive time, we've got gardening time, we've got walking time. There's all sorts of different time that may be dead air. What are you plugging into when your hands are busy doing something else, or where you need to use some level of thought for where your work, but you still could listen to something in the background. And one of the things that's been a powerful tool for me is listening to audios. I am a huge listener to audiobooks, to podcasts, to lecture series. And I listen to all sorts of stuff. I listen to leadership. I listen to parenting and marriage. I listen to audios on speaking to other people and how to speak. A friend just gave me a book last night that I need to go back and listen to because he's mentoring me through some things. And as we talked about it, he's like, you need to go back and listen to this book again, because I think there's something you're missing during this process that you're going through. And I'm like, okay, I got that. What are the things that you can do, that you can find that are maybe are specific to you, or maybe that challenge your worldview? Because that's one of the things that's really helped me, is being open to other people and listening to the other side of an argument. Because I know I don't know everything. I've got a friend who he loves to, and I'm not going to be able to do it the way he does it. But what I hope people realize is how much we don't know. And there's a ton I don't know. And so I consider myself a constant student, because I can learn from the next person I talk to. You know, Elena might be an expert in something I've never even heard of. So if I go into that connection with her as a student and listen to her, then I'm open to learning something that she could teach that only she might be able to share. When I got connected with Cheryl and Jamie, I did not come in with that attitude, and I got humbled pretty quickly. And let me just tell you what, their care for their community was so powerful that I had to take a step back and listen and then learn from the community. And it has been a huge benefit to me. The next thing that I hope you're looking for is events like this one, whether it's this specific event or something specific to your business, to a lecture series on something you have a little bit of curiosity about. And then mentoring sessions, working with people. And we've heard several different people talk about that. Barbara was talking about that. Sabrina was talking about that yesterday. I believe even Joe talked about that. Unfortunately, those notes are on this iPad, but in a different spot, so I can't go back and reference everybody. Are we looking for those opportunities to learn? Are we looking for those events, those associations? Because as we learn, as we're reading, as we're listening, as we're seeking that knowledge, what that does is it allows us to grow, to expand our capacity, our ability. Stephen Covey talks about our circle of influence versus our circle of concern. And the way that we grow the circle of influence, how many people we connect with, and even sometimes not even realize influence, is by focusing on our circle of concern. We had several people talk about facing their fears. And as a teenager, well, wasn't quite a teenager. I think I was like 12. I had to be strapped down to a board to be given a shot. I was totally embarrassed. But what that caused me to do is to literally face that fear. To this day, if I need to get a blood drawn or the dentist needs to put some medicine in me, I have to see the needle. I have to see the whole thing. And once I see it, I have no problem. Not at all. But that's absolutely right, Susie. We never stop learning. And so literally facing those fears. And sometimes that can be hard. And sometimes that can make our hands sweat. Sometimes that can make us nervous. I was really surprised to learn that there's an actor, and I do not remember which one it is. He would throw up every time before a scene. But he loved what he did. He loved his craft. And he faced that every time through his whole career. One of the things that I've really connected with is my own authenticity. And as I was talking to my mentor last night, that's one of the things I was telling him, is that I'm doing this thing, but I had to figure out how to do it my way. That was authentic to me, that spoke to other people, that I was coming off as a genuine person. You know, Cheryl talks about that a lot, being ourselves, being connected to ourselves. And yesterday, one of the speakers talked, dadgummit, I might have to go look because now I'm not going to remember who it is. I think Joe Kelly and Cindy all talked about that yesterday. That is such a powerful aspect of who we are, is to be and live in that self. It took me a long time to find that part of myself. In that journey, though, like many of you have already expressed, I learned that I'm capable of so much more and that I can give more without having to worry about what comes back. Part of that authenticity is showing up, is being present. Whether it's dinner with your best friend or your significant other, it's spending time with kids or coworkers, being able to put aside our technology or our book or thoughts of other things and to show up and to be there is huge. The ability to do that allows us a much deeper connection and allows us also to be open to learning in those moments. It is such a joy for me to be able to sit and listen. And one of the things I do when I go into a new group is I like to sit and to just pay attention, to watch everyone. I remember sitting in a meeting one time and I was just being quiet and listening and paying attention, and somebody turned to me and says, "Well, you're not saying anything." And I said, "Well, these two people already shared some of my thoughts and this person shared something." And I was just looking to hear what was being said, to connect in that moment with those individuals. Now we were discussing some weightier things, but I didn't need to say a lot because some of my own thoughts were being already shared. When we give back to our communities, whether we're a leader in that community we serve, or whether we're just somebody that shows up and helps in little ways, it doesn't matter in the long run what comes back to us. Because, and my favorite word, one of my favorite words is karma, because it's that duality of what we give out, what we send out will come back. And I know in the Christian community, there's not really a phraseology for that. And so that's one of the reasons I love that word, is because as a Christian, even though that's an Indian term and a Hindu term, it really speaks to the truth that we find in our world, that what we share, what we send out, that influence we have will come back to us. And sometimes we're given big rocks. We're given mountains to overcome because of what we're going to do on the other side of that. You know, Cindy Rose talked yesterday about some of the things that she has gone through. I would have never known that about her if I didn't show up to support her and then to learn from her. She gives so much. You can see it in the way that she talks and the way that she cares about other people. It is so amazing to me that we're lucky enough to be connected with her. Lastly, these things help me go from a position where I was going to be fired. I was taken to a conference room and sat down with 3 levels of management and told things that I did not, that to me could have been handled with, "Hey, Will, could you not do this? Hey, Will, you know, when we're in meetings, don't do this." At that time, that person that was my boss also wasn't looking at me as a person, or maybe why I was checking my phone during meetings every time it buzzed. I had a wife that was 8.5 months pregnant. And so, waiting for that call to come in. But at that point, a mentor pulled me aside and gave me just little things to work on. And that's what started my journey into the reading, the listening, the associating, becoming more authentically myself. And it's always funny. Oh, thank you, Jamie. It's always funny to me that we sometimes get so worried about the world that we don't look at ourselves to learn who we are, to understand who we are. I am super thankful that I got to participate, that Jamie and Cheryl saw in me something that I could bring and share with this book, with this event. And I am thankful for both of them so much. They've had a huge influence in my life in these last couple of years. I think almost 3.5 years now. So one tip for books, and I've heard this works for other people, so this is why I like to share it. Is when a book sticks out to you, it's probably the next thing you need to read. And you can see these books right here. These are all my top books. Because they're actually listed on my website. Because the reason I do some of what I do on social media is to encourage people to pick up a book, because it can be so powerful in our lives. I've got about 2 feet of bookshelf that's right over here of books that are waiting for me to read. And literally, I recently had a book on marriage that every time I looked at that shelf, it's like the spine of the book got highlighted and the red just flashed like, okay, I need to read that one. So thank you all for allowing me to share, for being part of this event. Jamie, back to you.
I was just typing, many of your reviews and testimonials talk about how you've inspired people to pick up a book and read, sometimes for the first time in their entire lives, except for when they were forced to as a kid in school, right? And then there's no pleasure in it, right? So when you pick up a book as an adult and you read it for the first time with that adult brain and that adult wisdom, oh my gosh, it's just like, wow, why didn't I read all along?
It really is. It's one of the disservices, I think, of our school system, is the forcing of learning things. I'm really lucky that my wife is a reader also, and we have developed in our 3 oldest kids so far that love of reading. I've got an 11-year-old who goes through audiobooks like crazy, and we just keep feeding them stuff because eventually it'll start reshaping some of his thinking, and it'll help him grow into who he wants to become.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. That's so, so important. Alana, do you have a question? Come on.
Great share. Can you hear me? Great share, Wil. So I'm seriously addicted to books. I have a problem. I'm a CASA for an advocate for foster kids in Arizona, and we get two hardcover books. I think it's about every 6 weeks. So right now I have probably 18 books stacked up. They're mostly all on trauma or child welfare. So the issue is, disheartening. What's your recommendation? I try to switch up the topics. I want to get through these books because I love them, but they're getting to where they're stacked everywhere. Like that's my hoarding issue is books. But then also the second question is, do you ever quit a book? I have a problem with quitting a book. I know I heard Dave Ramsey say the other day that there's too many books to read, and why waste your time reading something that's not resonating with you? But I have a real hard time quitting a book. If I open it, I feel like I have to finish it. I think I've only quit a book maybe 3 times in my life, but just some feedback on those 2 topics.
So I'll answer your second question first. I have quit a book. It was a novel. I got into the 2nd chapter, and it brought up a situation that literally made me sick to my stomach. There are very few things that I can that I cannot tolerate. And the abuse of children is one of them. And the book talked about that. Incidentally, I've never picked up another book by that author or had any interest in reading it. Nothing against their other work, but just that was so distasteful to me that I just couldn't. Other books I have slogged through because there's a reason I picked it up in the first place. And so there's something in there that I need. And, one of the things we've talked about a lot this weekend is intuition and following your own intuition. And I've got, for example, the audiobook Truman right now, and I have not listened to that book in probably a year, but it's still downloaded in my Audible because I know there's lessons from his life that I'm looking for. And I will go back to it and listen to an hour or two and then go back to a different book. A book recommendation. Probably one of the top books that I recommend to people, especially dealing with hard relationships, is a book called Personality Plus by Florence Littauer. And this is what it looks like. And the reason that I recommend that is because there's two reasons. One, it teaches you about your core personality, and two, it teaches you about other people's core personality. And while we can use the book as a weapon against other people by putting blame on them because of the personality, if we use it as a tool to teach us, what that allows is for us to take that knowledge and learn how to communicate with other people. And one of the things that I've really been trying to study the last couple of years is how to connect and communicate with other people in a way that they will understand. One of my biggest challenges is one of my sons, whose personality is very much like me. And to be able to communicate to him in a way that he will connect and understand has been one of my challenges that I continue to work through. But for understanding, connecting to people, I would definitely recommend Personality Plus.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Any other questions for Wil? Wil, I was going to ask at the very beginning when you were talking about your story with your mom, how old were you? Did you say?
I was 12 or 13,
right.
I think. The problem with that era is I don't remember a lot because of what was going on. I do know that I have blocked some of those memories. But that being said, I knew it was right before we moved to Germany because my dad was in the Army. And so I know about the time frame. I'm just not sure exactly what spring that was, whether it was when I was 13 or whether I turned 14 already. So it's in that time frame somewhere.
Listen, that's a tough time in most people's lives just because you're managing so much. Your education, your hormones, your parents, your relationships, your self-awareness, et cetera, et cetera. So not surprising that you don't remember the age. It's a tough thing. That was just like one of those burning questions that I had. I don't know why.
All right.
Anyway, thank you so much for guiding us through some steps to really look at and examine going from fear to kind of embracing who you are is what I got out of that. Embracing who you are and setting that fear kind of aside and doing it anyway. Do it anyway. Yeah. So,
absolutely.
Yay. Thank you.
Thank you.